Okay, so basically a dream written down with a date becomes a goal written down into steps becomes a plan backed by action becomes reality. So basically what they're saying is, look, if you have goals, they're only dreams unless you write them down and you actually work on them every day. So if you're not working on your goals on a regular basis, it's just something you would like to accomplish, not something you're actually going to go and work towards accomplishing. So keep that in mind, right? I mean, it's great to have, hey, I want to do 25 transactions. Although if you're not doing the steps that it takes to get those 25 transactions, then it's just something you'd like to accomplish and not something you're going to actually accomplish. All right, so our goals today and our objectives today are to create a lead generation mindset, help to build strong foundations for your business, equip you with the lead generation tools to build your business, design well-stated smart goals, break down your goals into achievable action steps, and that's kind of the homework program. We're going to go over that step with you, although you really need to do this on a one-on-one. Sit down, think about your goals, and actually go through the goal steps, okay? Now, mindset is basically what we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about mindset. Mindset is a fixed mental attitude or disposition that predetermines a person's responses to and interpretation of situations. So what we really want to do is we want you to create a mindset beside action, right? So when you're thinking about doing these things and when you're going towards these things, and we're going to talk about a couple of tricks that we can use to create an atmosphere in our minds that lead us towards a better 2020 or hitting your goals or creating leverage in your business. So we're going to go over quite a bit of those. Although the first part of the class is mostly about mindset. Now, there's 4 types of people that come to class. The first one is the explorer. They're excited and curious about the new knowledge, skills, and tools they would discover in class. The other one is the prisoner. Has to be here, doesn't want to be here, doesn't know why they're here. The other one is the vacationer. A day of training is better than a day on the job. I know a lot of people in real estate that go to class just to go to class. So I'm hoping that you're either the explorer or the shopper. And the shopper is curious and cautious about one piece of valuable information that they can use right away. If you only get one thing out of this class, I'll be a happy camper. If you actually take that one thing and put it into practice and move forward with that one thing, it'll make my day, okay? So being the explorer is great also, and the shopper, I hope nobody in here is a prisoner. That wouldn't be good. All right, so what is your sales goal for the next 12 months? I want you to think about that for just a second, okay? I'm gonna give you 10 seconds. All right, very long 10 seconds. Now I want you to take that goal and I want you to double it. Now, once you double that goal, I want you to actually triple it. Okay, we didn't lose anybody, so that's good. At least I don't think we did we? No, we didn't lose anybody, so we're good to go there. So now what I want you to do is I want you to think about how that made you feel, right? So when I asked you to double it, how did you feel? When I asked you to triple it, how did that make you feel? Now look, I want you to think outside the box. I want you to stretch a little bit. When we do goals, we do a couple different types of goals, right? We'll do a budget goal, we'll do an actual goal, right? So a budget goal is I got to hit this bottom line. If I don't hit this bottom line, I can't pay my bills. The stretch goal is, okay, what do I really, really want to push myself to do? There's nothing stopping anybody in this room or virtual room. There's nothing stopping anybody in this virtual room to not triple their goals. Now, I'm not saying you have to triple your goals. I'm just saying I want you to think about it, right? I don't want you to have a limiting belief mindset. I want you to expand that and say, okay, if I did this, this, and this, could I triple my goal? Could I get it to the next level? Right? So just think outside the box a little bit. Now, the one thing that drives our goals is our big why. I get this question all the time. The big why is about having a purpose, a mission, or a need that in turn gives you focus. Okay? So I want you to think about what your big why is. Now, your big why is not, hey, I want to make a lot of money. That's not a big why. Your big why is why do you want to make a lot of money? What does that look like for you? What does that look like for your family? Okay? What does it look like? Hey, you can have a big why. I want to drive a Porsche. Now, there's something behind that, though, that's bigger than just what is my big why. There's a reason why you want to drive a Porsche. Right? I want to drive a Porsche because I want to drive down the street and people look at me and go, hey, that guy's successful. Right? Now, when we always talk about the big why, we always drill it down 3 questions. So some of you have experienced this firsthand, some of you haven't during some of our coaching sessions. And you'll say, I want to make $150,000. And I'll say, okay, well, why do you want to make $150,000? Well, I want to be financially responsible. I want to be financially independent. Well, great. First of all, does $150,000 make you financially independent? The second is your big why really is that you want to be financially independent. So then we go one deeper. We go, okay, why do you want to be financially independent? Well, I want to be financially independent because I don't want my family to have to stress over money. I don't want to stress over money. By the time I'm 30 years old, I want to have $1 million in the bank. Okay, why do you want to have $1 million in the bank by the time you're 30 years old? Now, I will tell you, going back to the last slide and talking about limiting beliefs again, I once had a coaching session with a gal and she said, look, I want to have $10 million in the bank in the next 15 years. And I said, okay. She was 25 years old. So by the time she was 40, she wanted to have 10 million in the bank. So I said, okay, let's break it down. 10 million divided by 15 is what? 750, right? 750 a year, something like that. So you need to make 750 a year in order to have, additional above and beyond your expenses. You need to have that money in the bank. What's it going to take? Okay, I need to sell 100 houses. If you sell 100 houses, then maybe, depending on how it goes, you could probably generate 750, maybe 120. Now remember, selling houses just isn't your only income. If you sell 100 houses in 1 year, you're going to have a ton of cash in the bank. Take that ton of cash in the bank and go buy 10 rentals. If you buy 10 rentals, in 15 years, those 10 rentals are probably going to double in value. So if you buy 10 rentals at, let's say, $400,000 to keep the math easy, right? $400,000 times 10 is what? 4 million, right? So now I got $4 million in assets. In 15 years, that asset is probably going to double. Now I'm at 800. So just by buying those rentals puts me halfway towards my goal. So just think about it. Once you start breaking it down, now when we get to your big why, and your big why is, okay, I want to make 150. Well, why do you want to do that? I want security for my family. Great. Why do you want security for your family? And then it gets a little deeper, and then, it can go good or bad. It just depends. Now, once we know what that financial responsibility looks like and we have a number behind it, now we can take that number and say, okay, I want to make 150 grand in the year. My bills are 60 grand, so that gives me 90. Right out of that 90, I'm going to have expenses. I'm going to have all this other stuff. So now I'm looking at $45,000. So if I can bank $45,000 a year, how long is it going to take me to get to financial independence? Now you have to have there are going to be sacrifices sometimes towards your goal. For example, I had another gentleman that I was coaching and he was stressed. He was stressed all the time. And the reason why he was stressed is because he was making a ton of money. He was making 150 grand a year, and his bills were so much that it created a lot of stress. And he didn't see the light through the end of the tunnel, right? So I said, okay, great. Can you commit to 2 years of not going to the movies, not going out to eat, to only scrimp it and scrape it, and to only live on your bills and to live on nothing else? And he said, yeah, I can do that. I can live 2 years out of my life and only go out to dinner once a month. I said, great. If you're willing to make that, what I want you to do is every time you first of all, we had to find out what your bills are. So what are your bills? And his bills were minuscule. I mean, they were like $4,000 a month, right? So minuscule, right? Within, so his bills were $4,000 a month. So, okay, every dime that you make above $4,000 pays off your debt. So what we're going to do is we're going to bank 90 days worth of transactions. Put that in the bank. Once you've banked that, every single dime above $4,000 a month goes towards paying off your debt. Now his debt was like $80,000, $85,000, $90,000. So he paid that debt off in those 2 years. So now his life changes, right? Because he doesn't have that 80 grand hanging over his head. Every dime he makes above 4,000 goes towards creating a better life and financial independence, right? So that's a big why. And living up to your big why is pretty huge too. So, okay. All right, let's talk about E to P. Let's talk about going from entrepreneurial to purposeful. Now, we are all in real estate, or most of us are. I'm assuming. I can't see you. So I'm assuming most of you are in real estate. Just by that definition, you are already an entrepreneur. Okay? You already have that entrepreneurial spirit. Now, what happens is most of us have a natural talent. And we all have different ceilings, right? We all have different ceilings. So our natural talent is going to get us to our natural ceiling. What's going to happen is we're going to hit that natural ceiling and then we'll bounce off. And then we'll do it again, and then we'll do it again, and then we'll do it again, and then we'll do it again. Now the difference is going from entrepreneurial to purposeful is once I hit that natural balance, that natural ceiling, unless I do something differently, focus, model, systems, I break through, I read a book, I take a class, I interview somebody who's done it before, I refocus on my goals, restructure my goals. All I'm going to do is keep going and hitting that natural ceiling. Once I do those things, read a book and take a class, then I can pop through that ceiling, and now I'm being purposeful instead of being entrepreneurial. Okay? So guess what's going to happen though? You're going to hit another natural ceiling, right? Your natural ceiling's going to be a little bit higher. That's okay, because now we know how to get through that natural ceiling again. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit that second natural ceiling and go, hey, I've been here, done that. I know how to break through this, so I'm going to do the exact same thing I did. Find a book, find somebody who's done it before me, go to class, do whatever I need to do to get through that natural ceiling. So we're all entrepreneurial, and that's great. And we all have different natural ceilings. Now we need to be purposeful. Taking this class is a portion of being purposeful, and I hope you use this to break through your natural ceiling to get to your next level. So, for example, let's talk about open houses. How do we go from E to P for an open house? So you can put it in the chat, and then we'll go from there. So, for example, most of us do an open house. We put it in the MLS, we put it on our website, we throw a sign up front, we get flyers made, and we sit in the open house and wait for people to show up. How do we go from entrepreneurial to purposeful in an open house? What are some of those things that we do differently, that we take the next step to just showing up, instead of just showing up, seeing what happens, to making sure that we drive people to the open house? Right? We're going to door knock, right? So door knock is a great example of being purposeful. I'm going to go out and I'm going to knock 50 homes, around 20 homes, 30 homes, 40 homes around that open house to drive more people. Remember, open houses are a numbers game. The more people I get in there, the more people that I have an opportunity to convert to be a buyer, right? So door knock, personally invite the neighbors half hour before, send out postcards, that's a great one. Boost open on the Facebook. Did I just say that? Boost it on Facebook. So on Tuesday, I'm going to be purposeful and I'm going to determine what my open house is. On Wednesday, I'm going to start putting it on social media, including Facebook, and I am going to boost it. On Thursday, I'm going to put it on Twitter, Pinterest, all that good stuff. So it gets more and it drives more people there, right? So now I'm being purposeful instead of sitting there and waiting to see who shows up. So, use a sign on more than one corner, right? So being entrepreneurial is having 4 signs. Being purposeful is having 10. Now you got to be careful, right? Because each city or municipality has different rules and regulations on the sign, but we're being purposeful, right? So I have 10 signs. So I teach an open house class because I'll tell you, when I first got into real estate, my first year, I sold 24 houses and made 140 grand. Now in today's dollars, that would be like 220 grand. So I had nobody in my database. I knew nobody. I worked up north and I lived down south. So that's where I started doing mine. So I had 10 open house signs and I would put each and every one of them out every single open house. So does I'm hoping that makes sense, right? So going from entrepreneurial to purposeful will change everything you do. All right? Okay. All right, time on task beats talent every single time. Now, a perfect example of this is Tiger Woods. It says right there. I usually ask, do you know how many practice shots that Tiger Woods hits in any given week? And it says it right there. It's 1,000 balls. Tiger Woods hits 1,000 balls every week. Now remember, he's one of the best golfers in the world. He started when he was 5, right? Can we all agree he had a natural talent? And he probably could have never hit another ball and went and won tournaments, local tournaments, regional tournaments. And he wanted to be the greatest golfer that ever lived. And the only way to do that is time on task. So I usually ask the question, how many PGA golfers are there out there? I believe there's about 400. I think it's 367 or something like that. Now, keep in mind number 367 is the 362nd, 7th best golfer in the entire world. Out of billions and billions of people, he is, because the LPGA has their own, he is the 367th out of, I don't know how many people in the world, 10 billion? He gets there every day by practice, 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 practice. So he hit his natural ceiling, and his natural ceiling was probably a regional or a local event. In order to get past that natural ceiling, he had to be purposeful and hit 1,000 practice shots a week. So whatever you want to do, whatever task you want to do, whatever you want to be talented at, you can absolutely do it. You can absolutely achieve anything that you want to achieve based on time on task beats talent every single time. Now, if you're talented and you also do time on task, you're going to be the best golfer in the world. I mean, you are going to be the Tiger Woods of golf. So you just have to keep adding on to that, adding on to that. Now it comes somewhat easier for some people, and that's okay because they have a different natural ceiling. Some of us just need to work a little bit harder in order to get to that next level, okay? So time on task beats talent every single time. All right, the 80-20 rule. Now, there is no more important rule in real estate than the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is typically known as the Pareto principle. Now, what he did is he did a study, and he noticed that 20% of the pea pods in his garden were responsible for 80% of the peas. So he said, hey, this makes sense. Let's go check this theory out with everything else. So he started to do business, he started to do other crops, and he realized that 20% of our efforts will bring 80% of our results. So what do you think is a real estate agent's 20%? Calling your sphere regularly. That is your 20%, your SOI, social media, lead generation. Appointments are definitely a part of your 20%, although if you didn't do your 20%, you wouldn't have any appointments, right? So think about that. So lead generation is your 20%. No cards, all right? Without that 20% of lead generation, you're gonna struggle to get your 80% of results. Now, I will tell you that a lot of real estate agents struggle with this concept, right? What is your 20%? A lot of real estate agents have this kind of business, right? The roller coaster business. So we want to stay away from that, and we want to get to a business that looks like this, right? So it's that lead generation. It's those making those calls every day or every other day or however you want to structure it that gets you to the point where you can have this kind of business. So a lot of people get into real estate and they do all the calls, they're doing great, and they get a deal. And then they start focusing on the deal and they don't do their lead gen. So what happens is once they close that deal, they're like, uh-oh, I gotta go get more business. So then they start making those phone calls again, and they make those phone calls and they get another one, and they start dealing with the deal again. Okay, and then they're dealing with the deal and not doing their lead generation. So, do you want to have this kind of business or do you want to have this kind of business? It's up to you. It's up to you and what your focus is and the things that you do on a daily basis that get you to that next thing. And the lead generation, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, is kind of what you want to target. Now, I don't want to scare you away, and I don't want you to think that this is just lead generation. This is not all that lead generation is. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a big part of it, although there are other things that you can work on. And we're going to talk about the 14 pillars here in a little bit. And, we want you to always work on 4 pillars at all times, although your SOI and your database are your number one focus and should be in your 5%, not only your 20%, your 5%. Okay? So 80-20 rule, 20% of your efforts are going to give you 80% of your results. All right? Now, there's a great book out there, and I get a lot of guff for me telling everybody to read this book. It's the 4DX, the 4 Disciplines of Execution. This is an awesome book. It doesn't matter if you're selling real estate, selling nuts and bolts, selling widgets, it doesn't matter. Great book. The 4DX is all about being purposeful. Okay? Now, it's not the easiest book in the world to read, and that's okay. If you need help with it, come talk to me or talk to your branch manager, and we'll be more than happy to help you with the 4DX. Now, some of this stuff we'll do in the latter part of the class is totally 4DX, okay? So if you haven't read this book, I was gonna cuss, but I can't cuss on Zoom, right? It's bloody awesome. Now that's cussing, it's cussing in English though. So, no, not English, British, sorry. Okay, so the 20-80 rule, right? 80-20 rule, okay? All right, so this leads me to another book. This book is my all-time favorite real estate book. It's The 7 Levels of Communication, written by a gentleman named Michael Mayer. Now, one of the major concepts, now it's only 167 pages and like 20 of those are pictures. So you'll be okay. It shouldn't take you but a couple days to read through this book. One of the things that I really, really love about this book is always come from contribution. So the 7 Levels of Communication by Michael Mayer, always, always, always give before you take, right? Always, always, always come from contribution. So what am I giving you before I ask you for something? So a lot of real estate agents will use the script and they'll call their database and say, hey, this is Paul Frink with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Do you know anybody who's looking to buy or sell? So that's going to work once you get through your database. The issue is all you're doing is you're asking for something. The next time you call that client, they're going to say, oh, that's Paul. He's just looking for business. And we don't want that, right? So talking about coming from contribution, you always want to give your client something before you ask them for something. And most of the time, if you're giving, you never need to ask them, although it's a great conversation to have. So one of the other things that there's 2 other things that I really love about this book. One is he talks about not comparing your insides to somebody else's outsides. So I don't want to give away the book. There's a gentleman in his office who's very, very successful, although he's not making a dime because he's buying all of his leads. So when you look at it at first glance, they're doing well, they're doing awesome. Although when you dig deeper, it's just not happening. So if you were to look at him and compare him to you, then you would see that, hey, I'm only doing 10 deals. He's doing 30. He's doing better than I am. Well, not necessarily. So unless you can dig deeper, don't even think about comparing your insides to somebody else's outsides. We're all different. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with the DISC. We're all different. So you can't all be the same. Okay. So they also talk about scripts. Now, I already gave you one script that's not very good. I mean, it's good. It'll work once. So I always want you to come from contribution though. So this is my all-time favorite script, right? And it's very simple. Hey, this is Paul Frink with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Do you have a second for a quick question? Yes, I do. Great. If you had a real estate question, do you have somebody you would call? If they say no, then it's awesome. I would love to be that person. If you need a plumber, electrician, a roofer, a window, lender, septic, siding, whatever, doesn't matter, anything real estate related, just let me know. I have all those resources. All right? And then for some reason they say yes, then that's great. If for some reason they can't be reached, I'd love to be your backup person. If you need a plumber, electrician, roofer, cider, landscaper, doesn't matter, just let me know. I have all those resources. Hey, from time to time I send out relevant real estate information. What is your email address? Don't say, can I have your email address? Just say, what is your email address? And a lot of times people these days don't even think about it and they just give you their email address. Okay? Now, it's up to you to give them relevant real estate information, and the best way to do that is Market Tracker PIP Weekly Event Planner. Okay? And oh, by the way, if you have any friends that have real estate questions, I'd be happy to help them also. So that is a script that is nothing but coming from contribution, right? I'm going to give you all my resources. I'm going to set you up on an email that's going to give you what's going on in your market, what's going on in your neighborhood, what's going on in the Puget Sound, which are all relevant real estate, right? So I'm going to give you that. So I'm going to be top of mind so that when you think about real estate, you think about me. Scripts. That's another thing that they talk about in the book is scripts. This is the one thing that I get the most pushback from real estate agents. And it just blows me away. Hold on, I'm not falling off my chair. And it flabbergasts me that real estate agents don't want to use a tool that has already been tested, we all know already works. So why not use it? Well, Paul, I don't want to sound scripted. Okay, I get that. You don't want to sound scripted. The best way to not sound scripted is to use the scripts over and over and over and over and over and over, so you don't sound scripted. You know, it's the listing presentation too. Hey, Paul, I can't practice my listing presentation because I don't have any clients. Well, do you really want to practice on your clients? No, you don't. Sit in front of the mirror 100 times and do your listing presentation in front of the mirror 100 times. What's stopping you from doing that? Don't own a mirror? Right? Ask your mom, ask your dad, one of my favorites is your dog, because your dog will always listen. Right? You got a handful of treats, your dog will sit there forever and listen to whatever you have to say. Now, if your dog gets bored and you got treats in your hand, you might want to redo your listing presentation. So do those scripts. People have been there before you.
Do we have those scripts on my dashboard?
Some of the scripts are, yes, on your dashboard. They're also in the resource center. And if you ever need a script, just let me know. I mean, I've got thousands of scripts, right? Usually when we're in class, I'll say, hey, test me. Give me something you need a script on. Now, scripts are also objection handlers. And the difference between somebody who's scripted and somebody who isn't is I already know what I'm going to say. I don't have to sit there and think about it. When I was doing open houses, when I first started doing them, my conversion rates weren't very good. So I sat there one day and I said, okay, let's think about this. What do I need to say to every single person that comes in? Back then, I probably shouldn't say this. I'm going to say it anyway. Back then, I looked at everybody like they had $7,000 on their forehead. right? And every time somebody walked out of that door and didn't use me, it was my fault that I didn't convert them, and $7,000 was walking out the door. So I just waved by to $7,000. So I came up with a system that made sure that my conversion rate was a lot better. Okay? So script. I script when they came in. I script when they got into the living room. I script when I let them walk around the house. As soon as they got done, I had a script. Before they left, I had a script. Once they left and I got their contact information, I had another script. I had a handwritten note. Oh, that was the other thing I forgot about, the 7 levels. The 7 levels of communication gives you 7 tips on how to write a handwritten note. And that 7 tips are awesome. Okay? They really are. The best one was, you typically have a handwritten note card and it's this big, right? Yeah, something like that. Oh, let me put that down. So the handwritten card's like this. So in order to fill that card, I needed a ton of words. And I was really struggling to do it. And then I read the 7 levels of communication and said, look, turn the card this way and write diagonally on the card. And then once you start writing diagonally on the card, you fill up the card in half the time. So that right there alone made it so I didn't have to come up with a bunch of sentences. I didn't have to come up with a bunch of information. It was easier to fill out the card. Therefore, it was easier to do my handwritten notes. So that was awesome. Now, Paul, what scripts do I use with my clients? Well, you can use, there's a ton of scripts out there. There's a lot of them out there. Tom Ferry has a bunch of them. I'm not a big Tom Ferry fan, although he does have some really good scripts. If worse comes to worse and you don't have anything to call, now remember, we should contact our clients 4 times a year. So that's either text, in person, no email, Facebook instant message. It's a 2-way conversation about real estate. So the easiest script in the world is Ford. If you can remember Ford, you'll be just fine. Paul, I don't know what to say. Great, here's the script. Ford, how's your family? How's work going? Have you done anything fun lately? What's your real estate dreams for the next 24 months? Remember, this is just a 3 or 4 minute conversation. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes, a half hour. So if you can remember Ford and have that conversation, you know what the scripts are. You know what you need to do to make your 4 contacts with your clients. Right? Because half I get it. I understand it. In my job, I have to contact my SOI 4 times a year. So I do the exact same thing you do. I know it's tough to pick up that phone. Right? Although when I have a reason to call or I have a script and I know what I'm going to say, it's a ton easier to pick up that 800-pound phone and just start making phone calls. Okay? And it always goes back to Ford. I always want to keep a relationship with my clients in such a way that I'm not asking them for business, although I'm top of mind, so they're going to remember me when it comes up. Okay? So think about that, right? Scripts. Just think there's a script for everything. Right? Okay. All right. Now, performance equals potential minus interruptions. Can I figure out what your potential is? Absolutely. I take your database, and we're going to go over this math in a little bit. I take your database, I times it by 12, and I divide it by 2. Whatever that number is, that's what your potential is. So let's say you have 100 people in your database. Your potential is 16 clients per year. Now, remember, going back to the other slide too, is Real estate is a long-term play. People only sell every 7 to 10 years. So you have to stay top of mind with them for 7 years. That's your job. And one of the newest initiatives in the Berkshire Hathaway system is the loyalty gap. So we're trying to close that loyalty gap. And the way we change the loyalty gap and close that gap is to be top of mind, top of mind, top of mind, top of mind. If we did our jobs as real estate agents, Redfin wouldn't even exist. Zillow wouldn't exist, right? Because all they're doing is selling our leads. If we stayed in contact with our clients, our loyalty gap would be 0. Zillow wouldn't have anybody to go after. Redfin wouldn't have anybody to go after. Okay? So your potential is your database times 12 divided by 2. Okay? So if I have 100 clients, then that gives me 16. Right? Yeah. Okay? So now your performance equals your potential minus your interruptions. So via the chat, what are your interruptions? Don't be shy. Don't be asleep.
Homeschooling, kids, phones.
Homeschooling, right? I mean, that's a big one right now. Housework, bills, daughters, the dog, family, social media that isn't related to real estate, visiting with colleagues, absolutely, that's a big one.
Binging Netflix.
Binging Netflix, totally. Day job's a huge interruption, right? Pandemic. So these are all things that affect your performance.
Coworkers.
Coworkers, yeah. Okay, so think about that, right? What are your interruptions? And as we go through these interruptions, which of these interruptions can I get rid of? Can I get rid of my kids? Kinda. Now that's fine. You know, your kids are your interruption. Although, you know, there are ways around it. There's boundaries you can set. There's conversations you can have. You know, mommy and daddy are working right now, so we need to have some quiet time, or we need to, you know, and the greatest thing is share your goals with your kids so they understand, you know, what you're doing and what you're working for. I once had this gal that I was coaching, and she said, you know, we were going to her big why, and one of her big whys was, I want to take my kids to Disneyland. I said, that's awesome. Okay, so how much does a Disneyland trip cost? Let's say everybody goes first class, everybody stays in the best hotels. So you go for 7 days, it's about 15 grand, right? So you're gonna spend 15 grand on this Disney vacation. So we came up with some stuff. All right, what do we want to do? We need to save 15 grand, blah, blah, blah. And she was struggling. She was struggling with hitting those goals. And I said, okay, you want some motivation? I'll give you some motivation. I want you to go up to your daughter, and I want you to tell her that you're going to Disneyland, and you're going on April 21st, whatever. Okay? And promise her that you're going to go. I promise you, we're going to go to Disneyland on April 21st. Right? And then every time she comes up and stops you or interrupts you from working, you say, hey, honey, our goal is to go to Disneyland on April 25th. I need to accomplish this to make sure that we have what we need in order to go. So that's motivation, right? So for some reason, still wasn't hitting her goals, and that, you know, that wasn't it. So then it got deep, right? It got really deep. So what we need to do is pain versus pleasure. Pain versus pleasure is, hey, I want you to go tell your daughter that you didn't do what you needed to do in order to save enough money to go to Disneyland. So instead of your interruptions, been watching Netflix, being on, being on social media when it's not real estate related, you just say, hey, every day I want you to go tell your daughter, hey, today was a good day. We made some strides toward Disneyland, or today was not a good day. And, we're going to have to struggle to make sure that we get to Disneyland. So is that motivation enough for you? Right? So we can have that pain versus pleasure conversation. Because the pain of not doing the activity has to be more than the pain of doing the activity. Right? Because I get that all the time with real estate agents. They'll come up to me and say, hey, can't pay my mortgage this month. And my question to them is, okay, well, what did you do to create business this month? Well, I didn't do anything. Well, what'd you expect? Right? Because the pain of them not paying their mortgage, or the pain of them doing their lead generation, was not more than them not paying their mortgage. Or they would have figured out a way to do it, right? They would have done something to get out there and to pay that mortgage, right? So it's pain versus pleasure. So what are your interruptions? I mean, look at your interruptions and have those conversations with your interruptions if you need to. Right? Think about what you're doing. Now, the last thing we're going to do in class is create a schedule. So if you can protect your schedule, you're going to be just fine. Right? Take your kids to go show houses. Get them involved. Let them see what's going on. Let them see what you do for a living. All right? So work on those interruptions. Think what those interruptions are. Can I take this interruption out of my life with enough purposefulness? Can I take that out? Can I not do that activity that's stopping me from reaching my full potential? Okay, you're real estate agents. You have control over your calendar. As much as it doesn't feel like you do, you absolutely do. So what about you? Let's talk about you. Now, I get all the time, can I do real estate? Am I good enough to do real estate? Absolutely. Anybody can be successful in real estate. It's all a numbers game and finding your niche, what you're good at, what you want to be. And this video makes me cry every time I watch it. So I'm glad you're not here. What it is that this is me, and it's a story about just being you. So whatever your real estate is, don't ever allow anybody else to tell you can't be good at real estate. Because I guarantee if you come in for coaching with your branch manager, we'll find your niche. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together, and we'll get you there. Don't ever let anybody else tell you otherwise. So this is a video that was made by the producers and the directors of The Greatest Showman. It's what they put together in order to take it to other people to get the pilot project or to get the project approved. Okay? So this is an awesome video, and listen to the words. Now, the one thing I want to point out is look at the piano player. Look at what he's doing in the beginning, and look at what he's doing in the end. Be whoever you want to be. I've gone to many conventions, and a lot of the conventions are interesting because there are people there that their sole purpose is to get leads from outside their area. So I know one guy, he would wear a total captain's outfit, a yacht captain. He'd have the hat, he'd have the jacket, he'd have, and that's who he was. I mean, who cares? Who cares? He didn't care. He didn't care what anybody thought about him. his sole purpose and his sole goal. And I know he was doing well because it was a really snazzy outfit. All right, so let's talk about the disc. I don't know how many of you have actually done your disc. And if you haven't done your disc, I'd be more than happy to do that with you. Many of you have done it. The disc is very simply a behavioral styles and what your behavioral styles are. Now in our two offices, we use the disc a lot. And we really use it for three reasons. One, we want you to know what your behavioral styles are. Two, we want you to know what your client's behavioral styles are so you can do what's called mirror and match. The third reason why we use it is because we want you to build a real estate business around your behavioral styles. There is no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong. It's just this is what your behavioral styles are. Now, some people are going to be good at door knocking and really enjoy it. Some people aren't. Some people are going to be really good at social media. Some people are going to be good at search engine optimization and working on the computer and the technical side. And some people aren't. That's okay. Now, if you have a pillar that you really want to do and it's not within your behavioral style, that's okay too. You just have to realize that you're going to talk yourself into doing it every single time, which is fine. And eventually you may get used to doing it. So, I don't know how many of you have ever gone door knocking. When I first started going door knocking, I would sit in my car for 20 minutes. And say, okay, let's go do this. And then you grab the doorknob and you don't open the door, right? So we want to do things. Now, door knocking was good for me. I always had pretty good success doing door knocking. So, it's whatever you are good at and whatever you want to do. So the D is dominance, the I is influencer, the S is steadiness, and the C is compliance. So whatever your behavioral styles are, that's what we want to gear your pillars to, so you feel comfortable with doing them and you'll actually do them, all right? So there is some science behind this. There is some behind the scenes to it. Now we use the Abelson, and Abelson talks about the different types of behaviors that go along with each of the behavioral styles. Again, high C's, high D's are task-oriented, high S's, high I's are people-oriented, and then there's introverts and extroverts and so on and so forth. So whatever you look like, whatever you want to be, it doesn't matter, just be it. Don't allow somebody else to tell you that you're something else, right? I mean, if you walk into my office and you say, I don't like doing this, we're going to have a conversation. The conversation is, what is your disc? Why don't you like it? I mean, if you don't just like doing it because you're lazy, that's a totally different conversation, right? So, we're going to talk about that. We're going to think about that. And we're really going to gear this towards what you enjoy doing, because we want you to enjoy real estate. We don't want it to be a job. We don't want it to be a chore. We want it to be something you're going to love doing forever and ever. Now that gets back to, what do we tell ourselves, right? What are the conversations that we have with ourselves? There's another video that I usually show here that it's a little controversial, although it's called the snowflake study. Now, we all know every single snowflake in the universe is different. There's no two snowflakes that are ever alike. And if you just Google snowflake study, it'll pop up, and it's really very interesting on what we tell ourselves. The study is they took water and they put it in jars, and then different jars they would do different things to. So they would talk negatively to this jar. They talk positive to this jar. They would say different words to each one of the jars, and then they would take them and freeze them into crystals. or snowflakes, which is what a crystal is, or a snowflake is a crystal, right? So each one of them had a different look and a different appeal to it. And what's important about that is remember that our bodies are, I can't remember the number now, 98% water, right? They're 98% liquid. So if we're having those conversations with ourselves and we're telling ourselves these things, just think what we're telling the cells in our bodies, right? What are you telling yourself, not only emotionally, physically, and mentally, right? What are you telling your physical body and the cells in your body every single day? Now, I love to show this video, and I love to show this video for a couple of reasons. One is, this is from Dove soaps, and they did a huge series on this, and it's not just this video, there's a bunch of other different videos that go along with this. But I just want you to think, what do I tell myself? What is the conversation that I have with myself every single day? And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it happens over time. So just think about the conversations that you have, and we all have them, right? I mean, we're driving to work, we're driving to the grocery store, we're having those conversations. You had a bad day. I had an agent come up to me the other day and she said, I'm sad. I said, why are you sad? She goes, I just got fired. I said, well, you should be happy. You don't have to deal with that person anymore. Right? I know it's not good losing a client. I get it. Although, would you rather have a conversation with them every day that's you're going to be on here? Are you going to wake up in the morning, wonder if you're going to get fired or not? No. That's the great thing about real estate. We get to choose who we work with. Right? Have I ever been fired? Absolutely. I ever had bad days in real estate? Absolutely. I ever sat there and went, I probably should get out of real estate? Absolutely. Right? And then you start talking to yourself, and you start talking yourself into it. So try not to have those conversations with yourself, and try to stop those conversations. I mean, the saying goes, you can't control your first thought, you can sure as heck control your second one. Right? So we know what that is looking like with the second comment to ourselves. So I coached a gal that every day she would wake up. Every day she would wake up and she would tell herself, you know, I'm a horrible person. You know, I don't know why I'm doing this. I suck at this. I'm broke. I don't have any money. Her husband was a long haul truck driver. And he would say stuff to her too that wasn't very complimentary. You could tell that she was miserable. Every time she'd come in, she just looked miserable. And her sister was a very successful real estate agent. So her sister was doing very well. So she got to see that every day too, and that didn't really help. So what we did is we put her on a regiment of every day before 7 a.m. And she said she would get up whenever she got up. So she had no time, no schedule, none of that stuff. So every day at 7 a.m., she had to wake up and text me something positive. So it either had to be, you know, I am a powerful woman. I'm going to have an exciting day. I am a great real estate agent. You know, I'm going to make a ton of money. You know, just stuff like that. So every day she would text me something positive. So hopefully every day that's what started her day off. So after about 90 days of this, you could just see the change in her. You could see instead of coming in and just being sour and down, you could see she actually had a little pep to her step. She she was smiling, and you could tell that something had changed, that something was different in her life, and she all of a sudden just started selling a house here, selling a house there. So I think she did more in that 6 months than she'd ever done in her previous 3 years of real estate. So it's all about positive affirmations. It's all about what you tell yourself. So she, it was great to see that, 'cause she's a really, really nice person, and it was nice to see that change in her. And everybody around the office really started noticing and really started, having great conversations with her, because she was a really nice person, and we didn't want to see her walking around like that every single day. So now I just go with the eye poke technique. So if you come by me and you're not in a good mood, I just poke you in the eye, and then we go from there. So that gives you something to whine about, right? A poked eye. All right, so that was a really good story. It ended up she did a lot of real estate. She ended up building her own home, her dream home, exactly what she wanted. And it was really, really exciting to see that transformation. And all it was, the thoughts she was having, the conversation she was having with herself every single day. So there are a ton of apps out there that you can use that will just send you affirmations. So every day you can get a different affirmation on your phone, and just, you don't even have to do any of the work. It's great. And some of them are kind of funny. So, for me, some of them will pop up and say, "You're pretty." And I go, "Yeah, yes, I am." Right? So it was always fun to see those. Some of them were kind of interesting. All right, let's talk about pillars. Let's talk about what your pillars should look like. Your pillars are lead generation activities. Your database and your apps, or your SOI, are absolutely your foundation and should not be considered a pillar. Okay? We recommend that you have 4 to 5 pillars, 4 being the absolute minimum. So what I mean by that is that you have 4 different ways to generate business in real estate other than your SOI and your database. Okay? We should always be improving on our pillars. Now, the human mind struggles to do more than one thing at a time. So what we really want you to do is have 4 pillars, and then your SOI and your database. Always work on your SOI and your database. Pick out of your 4 pillars, pick one of them that you're going to master. So, okay, I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to master this one. I still do the other 3. I still work on the other 3 pillars. I'm just going to master this one. Now what happens is once you master this one, then you move on to the next one and master that one. Okay? And then once you master that, you work on this one. And then once you master that, you work on this one. And then what will happen is you'll eventually have to come back to this one and remaster it, because we never truly master anything. And real estate is changing at a rapid pace, and tools come up, things come up. So even though we're working on our 4, we're really focused on one, doing the other 3, and then continuing to master them as we go through. So as you keep doing those, your real estate business should go right along with it. All right, so there are 14 different pillars. So we're going to go through these really quickly. Open houses are a great way to get now business. People that come into open houses are typically ready to buy. The National Association of Realtors states for every 8 buyers that come in, you should get 1 transaction out of that. So one of those people should use you to purchase a home. So now you have a choice. Your choice is really focus on the 1 that 8 that come through, and It should be an and, right? It should be and get more people to come through your open. The more people that come through your open, the more opportunities you have. The more opportunities you have, the better you are getting that 1 to 8. Okay, so think about that and be purposeful about your open houses. I love open houses. I love them. That's what I did my first year in real estate, was open houses. 0 people in my database. I had to build my database up. So that's basically how I did that. So, okay. The next one is social media. Social media is Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Twitter is an inexpensive way to build your brand. They are all inexpensive ways to build your brand. So there's other ones in there too. Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn, Snappy TikTok, we'll see if it sticks around. So what you really want to do is you want to do them all. And I'm not saying you got to do them all to the extreme. I'm just saying you got to do them all to the point of where you have a presence on those. For example, Twitter. Are you going to get a transaction out of Twitter? Probably not. And the reason why is because only the people that follow you see your post. And they are only going to see your post if they're on Twitter at that exact time, or they get something that says Billy Joe Bob tweeted. So the likelihood of that generating business is pretty slim. Although what you really do with Twitter is you create validity. So when you're on Twitter and when you're posting on Twitter, people are going to see you as a valid real estate agent. So if you have 200 tweets, people are going to say, wow, he's 200 tweets, he's got 2,000 followers, he's following 4,000 or 5,000 people or whatever. So you're going to get that validity. Now, the National Association of Realtors says people will check you on 10 different resources before they choose to use you as a real estate agent. So you need to be not necessarily active on all of them, you have to have a presence on all of them. So Facebook is going to be a big one for you. Instagram. I'm a huge YouTube junkie. We are really at the Federal Way office and more at the Puyallup office now that we have a great location, pushing YouTube to get out to the masses. A lot more people respond to video than they do a tweet or something like that. And I don't know if you guys noticed, Facebook is tending to be a little more negative than it used to be, and some people are actually going away from Facebook. If you ask my grandson, he doesn't even have a Facebook account anymore. He's on Twitter or YouTube. He does everything on YouTube. He actually watches TV on YouTube. He doesn't watch TV anymore. It's kind of weird. So use YouTube and use it more than you ever were before. And if you're not comfortable with it, that's okay. Just do it. Just do it. And the nice thing about YouTube is once you do a YouTube video, you can just get it out to 5 or 6 different social media sites in 30 seconds. So I can post it to Twitter, YouTube, my blog, if you have a blog, and there's like 10 of them on there that you can send them to. Russian Twitter. So whatever you need to do. All right, so social media is key. Facebook is an awesome social media tool. It is one of the best tools out there right now. Although remember, everything is a fad, so we'll have to see how that fad keeps going. We say that Twitter is its own pillar because it is so big, and with it being so big, it really needs to be its own pillar. Okay, and it's inexpensive. I mean, you can get on Facebook and get fairly good results off Facebook without spending a lot of money. So. The next one is FSBOs. So FSBOs, they've already raised their hand. They've already said, I want to purchase, or I want to sell my house. So you don't need to talk them into that part. You just need to talk them into using you. Now, one of the best scripts is, hey, you do realize that only 16% of all for sale by owners actually sell. 84% of homes that sell use a real estate agent. And out of that 16%, 8% of those sell to somebody they know. So really only 8% is selling to a stranger. So if you don't know who you're selling it to, doing a FSBO is very difficult. And a lot of people don't know what they're getting themselves into when they're doing a FSBO, and they don't understand what goes, what that fee that you're paying a real estate agent goes towards. So FSBOs are great. I know real estate agents, that's all they do is FSBOs, and they sell 50 or 60 houses a year. So expireds or canceled are also great. Now, I don't want you to think that a FSBO and expired and cancels are just a phone call. If that's what you're doing, you will be relatively successful. Although if you really want to be successful with FSBOs, expires, and cancels, they are a system. And you have to use a system when you're doing these. So just calling somebody up, probably not going to get you there. It's the follow-up that gets you there afterwards, all right? Circle marketing. Circle marketing is very simple. I take an address and I circle market around it. I either do a radius or a number of people. Now, circle marketing is successful when you're doing just listed, just solds, because what you're doing is you're piggybacking on top of the marketing that's already there, and you're not starting fresh. So somebody has already put it out there that it's for sale, and then you're piggybacking on the top of it. So that's why circle marketing is successful. So if you have a listing, you should do circle marketing for just listed, pending, just solds. This is what's in the neighborhood, however you want to do that. Now, circle marketing also works for door knocking. There's a great circle marketing script out there, and it's very simply, hey, this is Paul Frink with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. I just want to let you know the home around the corner sold. It had 5 offers and it sold for more than asking price. So what that means is there's 5 other buyers out there that are looking for your home in this neighborhood. If I can get you your dream price, would you talk to me about selling your home? So that's the script for circle marketing, okay? All right, the next one is a farm. A farm is a great way to lead generate. I will say though, if you're a brand new agent, farming is not something that you should expect to see an offer from right away. It typically takes 7 to 8 months of consistent advertising to get a transaction from a farm. A farm is what we call a have not met, or somebody you don't know. So it's I don't know database, right? And we're going to talk about those conversion rates here in a second. Now, what I will say is you do not date a farm. So you don't go 90 days and say, oh, tired of that one, I'm moving on to the next one. Date that one for 90 days and move on. A farm is a marriage, it's a commitment. So you're gonna be committed to this for at least 2 or 3 years. And I saw somebody in the chat, and I think it's Kelly Quigley. Yes, it is Kelly Quigley. I think all brokers should farm their neighborhoods, absolutely. So what's great is if you need a farm, talk to Kelly. Kelly will get you a list. Now, what's important about a farm is conversion rates, how often people move out of that. For example, my neighborhood, nobody moved for 15 years, probably longer than that, 16 years. All of our kids grew up, moved out. When that happened, everybody started selling. So get a great conversion rate, and get, usually a first-time home buyer one works well. So get a couple of different farms rolling. And what's that? What was that last one? It says, my farm from 1 year, I am still nurturing the one who raised his hand. Good. All right. So that was Ron. Ron's been working on the same farm in Sumner for a while. So yeah, so Kelly can get you all that information. She can tell you what the turnover rates are. If you give her a specific neighborhood, she can get you the addresses. She can get the non-owner occupieds. You can do that. Now, a farm can be geographic, it can be demographic, it could be socioeconomic. However you want to do your farm is totally up to you. Now, again, be committed to your farm. Now, when I say you're going to do a farm, that doesn't mean you mail out to them 12 times a year. That's not a farm. Okay? A farm is 6 mailers a year, 2 drop-by or pop-bys, 2 door knockings. You're even going to want to do an event. So rent a tent, rent a bouncy house, depending on the age of the neighborhood. Get the fire department to show up. You know, that is a farm. A farm is just done mailing out 1,200 houses or 12 times a year, right? Now, I get the question all the time, how big should my farm be? Well, your farm should be whatever your budget is. So depending on your budget, that will determine your farm size, okay? So just think about that also. Oop, is that all of them?
Yeah, that's you.
No, there should be more of them. Where's the second page? Okay, so we're missing the second page of our farm. That's okay. How many we got there? 7?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see if I can remember the other 7 off the top of my head. Investors are a huge pillar. Now remember, investors tend to be disloyal, so you've really got to be careful with that. Although make sure you have more than one investor if that's going to be one of your pillars, okay? And use those. Now, Home Partners is an investor and could be in that investor group, although Home Partners is really a pillar all by itself. So if you're going to do investors, think about Home Partners as being a separate pillar and not necessarily an investor group. So
Events.
yep, events is one. Events is a great way. Are you going to type them all out for me? That's freaking awesome.
Events, networking.
So events is a great one. Now, when I say events, I mean 2 totally different things. One event is you're going to do something for your clients, right? So a baseball game, a movie. We used to do zoo lights at the zoo. Movies are great because you can rent out the entire movie theater, and it's fairly inexpensive to do that. Networking is also a pillar. I haven't seen a lot of success with networking, although it's a pillar. Networking is like groups, B2B, that's a networking group. If it were me, I would create my own networking group, and I would get my own painters, my own electricians, all that stuff, and create my own group. That's totally up to you. We already talked about investors. Door knocking. Door knocking is a huge one, and the National Association of Realtors says for every 44 homes you knock on and actually talk to somebody, you should get 1 transaction out of that. Now, some of you are not comfortable with doing door knocking right now. Totally up to you. That's on an agent by agent basis. So all I know is if you talk to 44 people, you're probably going to get 1 listing. And then once you get that 1 listing, then you can work off that and get a buyer off of it. So listings are leverage, right? Door knocking, we were talking about SEO, search engine optimization. There are companies out there that all they do is search engine optimization. So basically what that is taking your website and creating content on your website that people are looking for. So that's one thing that we talk about here a lot in Fedway and Puyallup. We talk about creating a neighborhood page, creating pages about, for example, in Federal we have the aquatic center, creating pages that give you that information, and that's where you get those organic leads, okay? Agent to agent is a big one. Don't ever forget your database that's in another state, another country, whatever, it doesn't matter. Make sure you're also advertising to those people so you can get those referrals. And then the last one is paid leads, which I highly don't recommend that you do. Paid leads, last year at convention, they gave us a slide, and the slide said all the companies out there that sell leads sold 100 million leads last year. So all they're doing is selling our leads or our clients to other real estate agents. They sold 100 million leads and only 5 million houses sold in the entire country. Now, half of those were probably from SOI, so now you're down to 2.5 million. Another, I think, 1.2 million are new construction or something like that. So the likelihood of paid leads paying off is pretty slim. Okay, pretty slim. So a perfect example of that is Zillow. Zillow is now a real estate company, and you'll see them turn into the next Redfin here pretty soon. So they'll be giving Redfin a run for their money. All right, so let's talk about your database and your SOI. The basic rule of thumb for advertising is you have to talk to somebody or put something in front of them 15 times before they'll remember who you are. And that's why it takes a farm so long to generate business for you, because you have to educate them in who you are. Now, if they already know who you are, then that conversion rate goes to 12 to 2. So for every 12 people you have in your SOI in your database, you should get 2 transactions. Now the caveat to that is you have to touch your clients 36 times a year. So if you touch them 36 times a year, you'll get that 12 to 2 conversion. Now, all those touches are not two-way conversations about real estate. Only 4 out of the 36 are a two-way conversation. Text, person to person, instant message, Zoom, video chat, however you want to do it. Have that two-way conversation 4 times a year. Now, if you do not have those 36 touches, then you're not going to get a 12 to 2. You're going to get something less than a 12 to 2. Now, the really cool part is at Berkshire Hathaway, we have a 70 touch program. 12 market trackers a year, 6 property investment profiles or more, depending on where they're at, and 52 weekly event planners. So the weekly event planners, the PIPs, and the market trackers are all relevant real estate information. So we already talked about those before, right? So make sure you're doing your PIPs, your market trackers, and you're sending out everybody you know your weekly event planner so you can get that 12 to 2. Remember earlier we talked about performance equals potential minus interruptions. If you're not getting those interruptions, what are those interruptions could be? I'm not sending out my PIP, I'm not sending out my market tracker, I'm not sending out my weekly event planner, then you're not going to get your 12 to 2. Okay? Now, for people that you don't know, let's say a farm. A farm is what we call a 50 to 1 transaction. So for every 50 people you have in that database, you're going to get 1 transaction. Now think about the difference. Market tracker, PIP, weekly event planner, 4 phone contacts a year don't cost me a dime. So if I have 100 rock solid people in my database, right? And I'm doing the 36 touch and I'm calling them 4 times a year and I close 16 transactions, that's 160 grand a year off 100 people. Okay, if you have 100 people in your database and you contact them 4 times a year, that's 400 contacts a year. 400 contacts divided by 50 weeks, because we take 2 weeks off a year, is how many contacts a week? 12? 12 and a half? I'm doing the math in my head. All right, so 12 and a half. Can you call 12 and a half people a week in order to make 160 grand a year? Think about it. 100 people, I contact them 4 times a year. Your loyalty gap is going to be really, really strong. If I contact them 36 times, if I touch them 36 times a year and contact them 4 times, you're going to get a 12-to-2 ratio. From 100 people, you're going to make 160 grand. Okay, enough said? Yeah? Okay, so in real estate, you have 3 options. Basically, I can do all my business from the people I know. So I take my sales goal, and let's say it's 10, just so I can keep the math easy. If I want to sell 10 homes, then I multiply by 12, divided by 2, and that means I need to have 60 people in my database. So that means you only need 60 contacts, okay? If I want to do that same sales goal with people I don't know, then I need 500 people in my database. Okay, do I need 60 or do I need 500? The thing is, the 60 are a lot cheaper than the 500. Because the 500 I got to reach 15 times just to remember what my name is. The 60 already knows what my name is. Okay, so option 3, which is most of us, we're going to have a combination of both, right? So if I want 50% of my business to come from people I already know, then I only need, if I want to do 8 transactions, I only need 30 people in my database. Right? 50% of my people comes from people I don't know, then I need 250 people in the database, right? So think about that. So how many people do you know? How many people should you have in your contacts? How many people do you have a phone number for, an email address, and a home address for? Because if I have those 3 things, I can do my PIPs, I can do my market trackers, I can make my 2-way conversations, right? Now, so one thing I want to talk about, and I think we missed it, that's okay, is you have a database, right? So here's my database. Now, in that database, we have what's called the core. And the core is defined as anybody who will give me 2 transactions or more per year. So that's your core. So that group is going to be a very, very, very small group. So let's say it's a total of 30 people. So if you have 30 people in your database, that'll give you 2 transactions or more per year. That's 60 transactions. Now, you don't want that group to be very big because you're going to wine and dine this group. So this group may be a group that you take to El Gaucho every year. So you're going to spend $100 on them just on one event to wine and dine them. Now, if you only have 3 people, then that's great. It's going to be a small group. It's going to be an intimate dinner. Take them and their wife out, whatever that looks like. And, as that group gets bigger, so let's say it gets, sorry, I keep dropping my water. So let's say that group gets to 30. Let's say that group gets to 30 and now it's harder to manage, right? Because you're really going to talk to that group on a weekly basis. So let's say it gets to 30. So the previous definition was 2 or more transactions per year that they were going to refer you. If it gets to 30, now maybe I go to 3 or more. So now I take the group from 30 to 15. And now that group of 30 wants to, you're still going to do something with them. It may not be that as extravagant. And then you get that group from 30 to 15. Now those 15 people get you 3 deals a year. So those group of 15, you're going to have to do something really cool with, right? So it's going to be a more I don't want to say intimate, but I'll say intimate. It's going to be a more intimate gift. If they love wine, it might be a case of wine. If they drive a Porsche, it might be I was going to say a Porsche tune-up, but I don't know how much a Porsche tune-up is. But if they're giving you 15 grand a year in transactions, that gift has to be commensurate with that. So, and you're following up and you're creating that relationship and you're having those conversations with them. So, think about that. I got my core, I got my sphere of influence, and then I have my database. So my core, I'm going to talk to on a weekly basis. So they might be on a 120 touch instead of a 70 touch, right? And then my database is going to be on my 70 touch, or my SOI will be on my 70 touch. And then, maybe your database, you don't call them, you still hook them up on the weekly event planner, the PIP, and the market tracker, although you're not going to call them. You're going to call your SOI, you're going to call your core, your database may just get emails. And your conversion rate, of course, is going to be a lot less than that group, although it's better than not getting anything, right? So you got to manage that database, right? You got to look at that database and what does that database look like? So for our core and our SOI, this slide shows the different touches. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to go outside of this. This is very simply a 74 touch campaign. Now, when I was at my other brokerage, we had emails that we would send out that looked like a 36 touch campaign, although they were like how to get a stain out of your carpet, how to dry clean your drapes, what's the best way to clean your blinds, stupid stuff like that. And we had probably a 7 to 8% unsubscribe rate. With these touches, the market tracker, the PIP, and the weekly event planner, I can guarantee you your unsubscribe rate is going to be less than 1%. And if it's more than 1%, you might want to have a conversation with those people who unsubscribe because they obviously don't know what they're getting. Okay? So, all right. So the tools are there. These tools don't cost you any money. You should have 100% of your clients on a market tracker, 100% on a PIP, and you should be calling your clients or having a two-way conversation with them 4 times a year. And add on the weekly event planners, and you should have a rock-solid real estate business. So let's talk about goals. Now, I'm going to tell you a story, and this is a very funny story, although, I find it funny. So for those of you who don't know, before I got into real estate, I used to own some Domino's Pizza stores. I worked for Domino's Pizza for 21 years. When I first started, I was a pizza maker. So I went from a pizza maker to a 12-store franchisee, okay? So the things that I learned going through that really shaped my real estate business when I finally made that transition. The goals thing, the goals for me are huge. When I got into my first Domino's Pizza store, now remember when I was a manager trainee, I was in a store, and granted this was a freaking lifetime ago, right? So it was a long time ago. So when I was a manager trainee in my first store, I was in a store that did about $15,000 per week. So this is when pizzas, no kidding, this is when pizzas averaged $7.50 a piece. So I don't know about you, but I got one the other day. It was like $22. So, so you can see the difference. Anyway, the store was doing $15,000 a week. The first store that I got promoted to manage was doing $2,500 a week. So we were doing more in one day at my $15,000 than we were in the entire week in my other store. So I was bored. I was bored. I was really bored. So what I did is I took the sales for every single day for 3 years and I put them up on the wall. So up on the wall around my office, you'd see a graph. And remember, this was before Excel, before computers were a thing. So I had to do it by hand with 7 different colors of marker. So I went in and I put the last 3 years worth of sales on a piece of paper all the way around the office. And my goal was to double the sales for every single day for that. So, so every day I had to look at whether or not I was beating that goal or whether I was above that goal and so on and so forth. So when I left that store, we were doing 54, probably around 6,500 a month. So I took that store, almost tripled the sales, and went on to the next store. The next store I went to was doing $7,500 a week. I was in there, and I still had my goals. I didn't do the 3-year thing because that took me forever. I was a little busier. One of my employees, a manager trainee, told my boss that I wasn't training her. So he made me come in on my day off and train her. Now look, this girl had been around for 5 years. She knew what she was doing. She didn't need me. She was just trying to get me fired so she could have my job. So I came in, I sat in the office, and I brewed all, for a couple hours. And then finally I said, look, I'm gonna make a positive out of this. I went next door and I bought a box of crayons. I came back to the store, and on the walk-in, now a walk-in is just a big refrigerator that you can walk in that stored all of our food. So on the side of the walk-in, I wrote down 10 goals. Right? Now this was back in the day. If you didn't get your pizza in 30 minutes or less, it was absolutely free. I don't know how many of you remember that. That was the deal. And we rarely delivered a pizza in over 30 minutes. I mean, it was like 5 out of 500. It was a 1%er. So I wrote on there, I wrote my goal, 99.5% of all pizzas delivered in under 30 minutes. Every pizza was a 10, blah, blah, blah. And now this walk-in was 10 feet by 12 feet. So it's 10 feet high, 12 feet wide. So I wrote all my goals on the wall. Now what I realized later was my employees had to read this wall. They had to look at it and say, okay, that's what our goals were, that's what our goals were. They didn't have a choice. This bad boy was a billboard. So they saw this billboard every time they clocked in. And the time clock, okay, I'm dating myself again. The time clock was right next to this big wall. So what was happening was every day their subconscious mind, because we can't stop reading things, I hope you guys realize that. Every time you walk into a room, your mind reads everything. So their subconscious was reading these goals every single day that they were working. So every day they were working, they were geared towards delivering every pizza in under 30 minutes. So they knew that, for example, they wouldn't take 3 pizzas at a time because they knew that third one was going to be late and that's not cool. So they'd let the next driver take 1 or 2, or if we had more people, they would get it done, right? So when I took over that store, it was doing $7,500 a week. When I left, it was doing 12 to 14. So we actually had a record week of 15,000, which was double the sales again. So I learned, right? I learned that everybody needs to see my goals. if I'm going to succeed, everybody sees my goals, right? So what I did when I went to the next store, I got promoted again, and that store was doing 15,000 a week. Now, it was the original store that I started in. So I went full circle, and I was actually running the store that I had trained as a manager trainee in. So I said, okay, that worked in that store, that worked in that store. I'm going to take these goals. Now, I got in trouble for writing on the walk-in. My boss wasn't very happy, so I couldn't do that again because it was my same boss. So what I did was I just started writing on poster board. Again, I'm dating myself. What all the goals were. So the goal was to break $20,000 a week. So I posted it everywhere. I put it in everybody's locker. I wrote it on everybody's time card, 20K. Every time they checked out, it was in my office. We had a training room. Everywhere in the training room, it was there. Every time they ran in the door, they said 20K, 20K, 20K. So everybody knew what the goals were. So in 90 days, we went from 15,000 a week to 20,000 a week. And that's because everybody was geared towards achieving those goals. So what was really cool was the second store that I was in, the one that went from 75 to 15. We had a thing, and one of the goals was Operation We Ate the Whole Thing. So we were going to deliver one pizza to every single street in the neighborhood, right, or in the city. So every time somebody would take a run, they would mark it off on the map, and then we'd keep track of it and all that. What the really cool thing was is that was a 30-day goal. At the end of the 30 days, we still had 8% of the houses. So we delivered to 92% of the houses. We still had 8% of the houses that needed to be delivered to. I had 100% of my employees showed up at 2 a.m. to go door hanging so we could achieve that goal. So the 8% of the streets, we had 25 employees that were going to go door hang. Now, door hanging is just putting something on the door, right? And in California, you always did it in the middle of the night because, one, it wasn't as hot, and two, you could run across people's lawns. If you did it during the day, you had to run all the way out and run all the way out. If you did it in the middle of the night, you just jumped the hedge. By the time the dog was figuring out what was going on, you were 2 houses down. So think about that. 100% of the employees showed up so we could reach our silly goal of delivering one pizza to every single street. So that was pretty exciting, and that kind of tells you the power of goals, right? So it tells you that setting your goals, telling everybody what your goals are, is extremely important to reaching your goals, okay? So what we did is we broke them down into SMART goals. Now, we break them down into SMART goals. The first part of that is specific. Your goals must be specific. Goals should be simple and specific, okay? The next part of it is they have to be measurable. So it has to have a quantitative value to the goal. I have to be able to look at that goal and see whether or not I'm on track by the number. So for example, I have to sell 24 homes a year. So I can look and see, okay, I haven't sold 24, I haven't hit my goal. So I need to do something different or do more activities in order to reach my goal, okay? So the measurable part is extremely important, and you think about it as a plane ride, right? So you're in a plane and you're flying, and let's say, for example, we're flying from Seattle to Florida. Now that's a 2,500 mile or 2,200 mile trip or something like that. If we're off 1 degree, if the heading is off by 1 degree, and I just go for it, I'm not going to hit Florida. I'm probably going to be in Cuba, I'm going to be in South America, something like that. The measurable part always keeps you on your heading. So I look, okay, I need to adjust my flight path to make sure I'm on my track, to make sure I'm getting to the right spot. And you probably don't know because the door's always shut now, but the pilots are always checking their heading. They're scanning the instruments, and one of those instruments is my heading, okay? Now, your goals have to be achievable. So what do we mean by that? Well, your goal has to be realistic. You have to be able to achieve that goal, or it's just a dream. Now, a lot of people say, well, do I set my goals so high that, if I shoot the moon, I'll land upon the stars? No, remember the clearest star is 4.2 million light years away. So you're never going to hit that. Well, I guess you will in 4.2 million light years, right? So hit your goals or make your goals so they're achievable. If you know they're not, you're just not going to worry about it too much, and it's not going to be acceptable. Now, am I ever going to tell you your goals are not achievable? Absolutely not. I will never say that to you. We will have a conversation, and the conversation is going to be the grow conversation. What are your goals, right? What is your reality? So if your goal is to sell 100 and you sold 5 the year before, right? What is the reality? Are you going to get a plat? Are you got an investor who's going to sell 100 houses? What is your reality? What are the opportunities? And then what are we going to do? So that's the conversation. If you come up to me and you say, hey, Paul, I'm going to sell 100 houses next year, the conversation is going to be great. What's your goal? What's your reality? What are the opportunities? And what are we going to do? Okay? Now, every goal is achievable. Can we all agree on that? If you sold 5 houses last year and your new goal is 100, can you achieve that 100? Absolutely. There is nothing stopping you from doing that. Absolutely nothing. I will never tell you you can't go from 5 to 100. Okay? The conversation is going to be, though, okay, you want to sell 100 houses. You sold 5 last year. What are the activities going to be for you to sell 100 houses? So what exactly is that going to look like? What are the pillars you're going to use? What does your real estate schedule look like for you to go and achieve those goals, right? I'll never say you can't do it. What I will say is, what is your commitment to get that done, right? What are you going to do? So specific, measurable, achievable, it has to be results oriented. If you're going to have a goal that's results oriented, or you have to be results oriented, again, it goes back to entrepreneurial, purposeful. So you have to be purposeful. You have to be results focused. Everything you do is geared towards achieving those goals. Now, if your goal is to sell 5 houses a year, that's fine. We're going to have that conversation. Okay? And if you only sell 4, we're going to have another conversation because you missed your goal by 20%. I don't care what your goals are. I just care about getting you to your goal and helping you get there. All right? Now, the last one is you have to have a timeline. Okay? It has to be time bound. So you never know you're going to get there if you don't know when you have to get there by. So we must have, and that goes back to the measurable. So the measurable and the time bound are intimately, there's that word again, are cosmically connected, right? Those two go together, measurable and time bound, okay? So in order for you to have great goals, they should be smart, right? If you walk into a room and say, I want to sell more houses than I sold last year, okay? That's a dream. That's something you'd like to accomplish. It's not something you're going to accomplish. Okay? It's just something you'd like to do. Because it's not specific, it's not measurable. Yeah, it could be achievable. You're not going to focus on it, and it's not time bound. So you need to walk into a room and say, I am going to sell 24 houses in 2021. Okay? And then we'll go through the list and make sure it's a smart, well-stated goal. Okay? So again, this is going from being purposeful or being entrepreneurial to being purposeful, right? I'm writing my goals down. I'm making sure they are SMART goals, and I'm going through what it's going to take to get there. Now, this whole class is geared towards this concept, okay? Now, when we set our goal, there's two different things. And this goes back to the 4DX, right? The 4 disciplines of execution. When we go into our goals, we have two different types of things to measure. We have lag goals. Now, lag goals are things that we won't know that we've accomplished till way down the road. So if my goal is to close 24 houses in 2021, I don't know if I'm going to do that until I either hit 24 houses or 2021's over. Okay? So those are what we call lag measures. Now, what we track and what we keep track of are our lead measures. Our lead measures are those critical activities that get us to our lag measures. For example, if my goal is to sell 24 houses in 2021, my lead measures are 100% of my clients are on a PIP, 100% of my clients are on a market tracker, I contact my clients, 100% of my clients 4 times a year, 100% of my clients are on the weekly event planner, okay? So those 4 things are lead measures. Now, are those also individually SMART goals? Absolutely. I'm gonna treat those exactly like I would a lag measure, exactly like I would my goal. I'm going to show you a 1, 2, 4 here in a second. The 1, 2, 4 is the one goal I want to achieve, the 2 things I'm going to do to achieve that goal, and the 4 things or 5 things I'm going to do to achieve the number 2s that are going to get me to the number 1. All right. So can I track 100% of my clients are on a PIP, for example? So what do I need in order to do a PIP or a property investment profile? I need the client's email. I need the client's address. So if I don't have email and address for 100% of my clients, I can't do 100% PIPs. Now I can do 100% of the ones I have a market tracker or I have an email and a home address for, although that might only be 50% of my database. So I need to get emails and addresses for 100% of my clients. So that might be on my lead generation calendar. I might set aside a week or an hour every week to just do that. My only goal in life is to get 100% of my clients' emails, home address, and a phone number. Okay, I'm hoping this is making sense. So lag measures, lead measures. I'm tracking the lead measures. Also, the lead measures are what's on my WIG board. Now, your WIG board is what we call a wildly important goal, okay? And you can go to 4dxbook.com and then /QR/scoreboards and see some samples of these. You can also just go to Google and Google WIG boards, and these will show up. So a WIG board is a wildly important goal board. And that board is designed for you to be able to look at the board and tell within 2 seconds whether or not you're on track or not on track. So my WIG board is, I can walk into my office and I can say, boom, I'm on track. or oops, I need to work on that. So I can look and see, okay, I'm not on track. What are the tasks that I need to do in order to be on track? So you'll see the bottom right one, the one that says EIWO. I have no idea what that stands for. And I can tell just by looking at it, since the light is green and it says WIG on it, that they are on track. Okay? Now they've got little valves underneath it, and you can see part of the valve is red and part of it is green. So I can look on that valve, and for each one of those valves, they have a different lead measure. And for those lead measures, they're in the green for all 4 of those, or all 3 of those lead measures. Okay? Same thing for the intensive unit care unit one. I mean, it's kind of hard to see, although you can see on the left-hand side, they have one sheet, and that sheet has their lead measures, and they're in green or red, green or red, green or red, green or red. I'm not sure what the Quiet Zone Barbie one is all about. I have to do a little more research on that one. So you get the concept, right? The concept is I need to have a visual cue that I can look at and in 2 seconds determine whether or not I'm on track. And I can see, okay, not on track, need to work on that, right? Now, as you read the 4DX, it talks about having a WIG meeting. So a WIG meeting is really simple, a 15-minute meeting every week about the WIG. So whatever the wildly important goal is. So for example, you might not, if your goal is to close 24 houses in 1 year, your WIG is not going to be about that. Your WIG is going to be about the lead measures, right? How many people, and it's a quick meeting. And the meeting is, this is what I promised I would do last week. This is what I actually did. This is what I'm going to promise to do next week. Okay? So what I promised to do before, what I'm going to, how I did, and comments on discussion about what I'm going to do next week and set my goals for next week. So it's a really quick 15-minute meeting. And again, you can have this meeting with anybody you want. Typically, you're going to have it with whoever affects your WIG. So if that's just you right now, you're going to have a WIG meeting with yourself every week. Now, if you're coaching, that WIG meeting is going to be with your coach, because typically a coaching session is 30 minutes. You're going to get to the bottom line. What you promised me you're going to do, what you actually do, and what are we going to do next week? Okay? Now, as your coach, it's not up to me to criticize you or to do any of that, to say, hey, you promised you were going to do this, you only do this. You got to do 50 push-ups. That's not my goal as a coach. My goal is to make sure you're self-aware and you're reporting your numbers out, and then you're realizing, okay, I got to step up what I got to do, and then we go from there. That's a perfect client, right? Perfect client is I always do things so we don't have to have the third conversation. All right. So, okay. So, and your WIG goal is really the same thing as a pilot looking at their compass and saying, okay, I'm not on track, I am on track, I'm doing well, flight path is good, let's keep going. Because you can have that meeting every day, right? You can have that once a week. This is what I'm doing, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm going to do next week. And if that keeps working and that keeps going, then everything's fine, right? So, my boss asked me not too long ago, hey, here's your recruiting goals, you're on track, and then here's your WIG calls, your conversations you're having every week. Are you on track or are you not on track? And I said, absolutely, I'm on track. I'm right where I want to be with my calls and my recruiting. So do I need to step that up? No, I just need to keep going with those same ones. And then if I fall off, then I got to step that up, right? So, and that goes into your schedule, and that's talking about your schedule, which is the last thing we're gonna do here today, is talk about your schedule, okay? So we got our WIG boards, we got our SMART goals, we got our WIG boards, so we're moving on to the next step, right? So let's talk about your homework, because I really wanna make sure you understand this. Don't feel that this has to be complete when you go talk to your branch manager, because we can help you with this, right? We can help you walk through it and go through it. So action is the foundational key to all success. Absolutely. If you don't have an action plan, we go back to the first slide. The first slide says if you've got a goal or if you have a dream and you write it down, right? If you apply a date to it, then it's a goal. If you have that goal and there's action involved in it, then you're going to accomplish it. So let's talk about the action plan. Where do you want to be 1 year from now? Now, the rule of thumb is you always have one personal goal and two professional goals. So those two professionals will lead you to the one personal usually. So if my goal is to own a Ferrari by the end of the year, your professional goals are going to get you to that point where you want to buy that Ferrari, okay? So then we get into the whys, and you always want to have professional whys. Now your professional whys typically will be your personal whys also. So just think about that. Determining your why is a lot more difficult than it sounds. Right? If your goal is to have if your big why is to have 100,000 in the bank, that's not really your big why. And we kind of talked about that, right? So it's always better to have a conversation with somebody else about these. So your production and your revenue goals. So what is your desired income for the next 12 months? Now, we always start off with your income, right? And we don't talk about units till the end. And the reason why is because if your goal is to close 24 units, you may only make 25 grand a year if you're selling mobiles, right? So we talk about income, we pair that with the volume and the number after we talk about your income, okay? Because we can always convert income to number of units. So we take your income, and once we've determined your income, we can determine how many units that you need. Now, typically in class, I would ask how many of you keep track of your numbers, right? How many of you know how many transactions you did, what the volume was, where each and every one of those transactions, what pillar did those transactions come from? Okay, and I'm not saying you did an open house, put somebody in your database, and then eventually they turned out. That's an open house lead, right? So that goes back to open house, not the database SOI. So there's a difference between lead gen and nurturing. Always remember that, right? Difference between lead gen and nurturing. So what's your desired income? With that, we take that number, divide it by your average sale. So whatever your average sale is, and it's going to be different for each and every one of us, because I know West Seattle's average is $500,000 and Federal Ways is 400. So that's a 20% difference. So if you're working in Federal Way and Pierce County, you have to sell more to make the same income as somebody in West Seattle. Okay? No, I am not bitter about that. All right, then we get into total number of transactions. So we take your income, divide it by how many homes, or the average price of your home. That tells us what your transactions need to be, okay? And from there, we talk about what you did for last year. What was your average commission per unit? And the number of closed unit needed in the next 12 months, okay? Now, we just got emailed, all the branch managers over the weekend got emailed your numbers. So we know all of your numbers and we'll send those out shortly. Now, if you're not with Berkshire Hathaway, let me know and we'll get those numbers for you somehow. Or you can get them somehow from your brokerage, and then we'll go from there. Home Step is a good way to do that too. So, okay. All right, now you want to keep track of your lead sources for the last 12 months. Well, you really want to do it forever. But really, we want to think about, okay, where did all my deals come from last year? Once we've determined that, then we can determine where we want them to come from this year. So do we want to keep doing the same things? Do we want to try a different pillar? Do we want to move on to something else? Hey, I tried that for a year, it didn't work, I didn't get anything out of it. We're moving on to the next one, okay? So what we do from there, we use those lead sources and we use the sheet, and this gets us to our pillar. So now remember, your database and your sphere of influence is your number one lead generation source, and then we add the pillars on top of that. So whatever you want your pillars to be, this is where you would write those in there, okay? Now, the next step is we're gonna take these pillars, and if your goal was 24 transactions, we're gonna determine how many transactions are gonna come from each one of those pillars. So this is being purposeful, right? And it kind of goes back to here. I'm going to determine where I want all of my transactions to come from. Now, once I do that, they're on my pillars. And for my pillars, I'm going to go to my 1, 2, 4. Now, remember, we talked about lead measures. We talked about lag measures. The 1 is a lag measure. This is, I want to close 24 transactions in 1 year, okay? Your 2s can also be lag measures. So for example, my number 2 might be based on my pillar sheet that I'm going to close 12 transactions from my database. So in my number 2, and really every time you do this, you're going to want to have your SOI in your database, because that's usually one of your biggest lead sources as a goal, and you want to make sure that you're maintaining that as you go along. Now, when we started, this was a 1, 3, 5, and then we realized that the real estate agents weren't doing the 3. They were just putting it up there, or not even putting it on the sheet, or doing something. It just wasn't getting done, so we took it off. So once you get good at this, and once you continue to do this system, then you can add that third one on there, or you can even add your personal goal as your third goal. And a lot of that is going to be accomplish goal number 2, accomplish goal number 2, and then you're going to accomplish your personal goal, right? So number 1 is a lag, the 2s are lag. Your 4s are going to be your lead measures. So if we go back to the example, 100% of my clients are going to be on a market tracker, 100% of my clients are going to be on a PIP, 100% of my clients are going to be on a weekly event planner, and all my clients are going to get 4 contacts per year, or 100% of my clients are going to get 4 contacts per year. Okay? So that's how this form works. Now you'll move on to the next one. So we go back to this sheet, and we go back to this sheet, and the number 2 one that we had on there, let's say it's open houses. So open houses was my number 2 pillar that I was going to generate leads from. Then I go to my number 2 and I write down how many deals or how many transactions am I going to close from open houses. So let's say it's 5. Let's say it's 6, one every 2 months. Okay? So in the second number 2, I'm going to write close 6 transactions from open houses in 2021. So that accomplishes my SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, results oriented, and it has a timeline, right? So everything on here has to be a SMART goal. Just keep that in mind, right? Especially if your number 2 goal, or your first number 2 is, I want to close 12 transactions, and your 4s are, within the next 90 days, I want to have 50% of my clients on a market tracker, right? So you can make those goals smaller, because how do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So if we can do them one bite at a time, and you really don't want to go more than 90 days out, right? You want to be looking at your goals every 90 days. Your lead measures you're going to look at all the time. Your lag measures you're going to look at probably every 90 days, okay? I'm hoping this all makes sense. And again, once you meet with your branch manager, it'll kind of come full circle, right? Now, what we do is we take our 1, 2, 4 and we transfer that onto what we call a year, month, week. So you'll see at the top is our yearly goals. So we're going to write all of our yearly goals down there. Now, after we write down our yearly goals, we can theoretically make 12 copies of this sheet, right? Because those goals aren't going to change for the next 12 months unless you beat them. If you beat those goals, then yeah, you're going to need a new sheet. So that's a good problem to have, right? Now, on the year, month, week, we take our 1, 2, 4 and we transfer it. So in January, I'm going to break down my yearly to be my monthly goals. Now, I will say, statistically, for most real estate agents, real estate is on a curve, right? We don't do so well in January, February, and then it picks up June, July, really max. It drops down November, December, aren't very well. Now, your business should not be a big hump. Your business should be a nice level line. Now, I will tell you, I have noticed that most of the closings in November and December are done by people who have teams. So you can do that analysis. Just pull up December of last year in your area and see who closed deals, and I'll guarantee you most of them were done by teams. So why is that? Well, it is because teams don't stop lead generating. They don't care what time of year it is. They got bills to pay, payroll to make. They're lead generating all the time. A lot of real estate agents will take December off. Well, December is going to affect your January and your February. So think about that. If I take December off, it's going to affect me for 2-3 months down the road. So I'm going to take my 1, 2, 4, I'm going to transfer it to my year, month, week. Now you'll see on there, there's 4 different columns for weeks. I only do 1 week at a time, okay? So either every Saturday night or every Sunday night, however you want to do it, you sit down. I don't care if you do it Friday night. Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night, you're going to sit down and you're going to plan out week number 1. So if my goal is to get 100% of my people on market trackers, I might write on my goal 25% of all my database on a market tracker. So if I don't accomplish it in week 1, when I sit down on Saturday and Sunday night, guess what? It's going to roll over to the next week. And it will continue to roll over until 1, you get it done, or 2, realize you'll never get it done. So then you got another choice. Do I continue to fool myself, or do I hire somebody to do it? Right? Because the goal has to be done. It has to be met. Or I got to revise my entire 1, 2, 4, okay? So on Saturday and Sunday, I write everything in my week 1. So week 1, I'm going to do this, and this, okay? Now, once I've done all that, then I transfer that to my calendar, okay? So if my number 1 to do, because that's really what your weeks are really to-dos. Once I write down my to-dos, I go to my calendar and I'm going to write down my to-dones. So when am I going to put it on my calendar? Now, your calendar has rules. Your calendar has rules and regulations. Rule number 1, schedule time off. If you do not schedule time off, this business will eat you alive. Okay? So put it on your calendar and protect your calendar. Okay? Protect your calendar. Make sure you're getting time off. We also call it white space. Don't schedule the entire day out with no white space. That's not realistic. You got to eat. You got to drive to work. Have reasonable white space in there. Okay? Make sure on your calendar you are time blocking for all 4 pillars and your database. If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. You're not going to do it. You may not even do it if it's on your calendar. So just think how well that's going to be done if it's not on your calendar. All right? Color code your calendar. Lead generation activities should always be in green because those are the money-making activities. Now, every week we have what's called Focus Factory with our agents. And the question always is, what did you do for lead generation in the last week? If you tell me I called my alphabet or I called my database, this is how many calls I did, then you're off the hook, right? And then you did this, you did this, you did this, okay? Now, if you tell me I followed up with this, this, and this, that's not lead generation. That's nurturing, okay? Lead generation is making your contacts your 4 contacts, okay? So if your lead generation is SOI, that goes on there first, right? That always goes on there first. So where are you going to put that? Now remember, if you have 100 people in your database, you need 12 calls a year. So where are you going to make 12 calls? How long is it going to take you? How effective are you going to be? If you call somebody, do you have to wait for them to call back? If they don't call back, do I text them? So that's in your calendar. Let's say that's 3 hours of your calendar. So remember, 3 hours a week done properly, followed up with your touches. If you have 100 people in there, equals 160,000 a year. Does anybody want to calculate what the dollar per hour on that is? $3 hours a week times 50, which is 150, right? So it's 150 hours a year. So what's $160,000 divided by 150? $160,000. Yeah.
1066.66.
So that's $1,000 an hour. You are generating $1,000 an hour when you're calling your database. I know you're on the other side of the Zoom saying Paul has lost it. He hit his max. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Right? But I know what I'm talking about. If you lead generate with your database 3 hours a day, 50 weeks a year, you're going to get awesome results. Okay? Awesome results. Now, we're going from purposeful or entrepreneurial to purposeful, right? That's what we're doing. That's what a schedule is. If you can follow a schedule in real estate, you will be a rock star real estate agent. Now, is this easy? Absolutely not. Is it going to take you probably 2 months to maximize this calendar and to get it squared away? Yep. Now, what we always do and what we coach is we will do our perfect calendar, and then what we'll do during the week is we'll keep track of what we actually did. So we got our perfect one, and then what we actually did, and then that Saturday or Sunday night we'll compare them. If they're way off, then I'm obviously doing a poor job of planning, right? If they're spot on, then in 30, 60, 90 days, you're going to start to see those results plow in, right? So now, do you get a client that calls you every once in a while and say, hey, I want to go see this $1 million house? Yes, it happens to us all the time. So if that's the case, go show that $1 million house. Okay? So if you got to take that, or if you erase your lead gen for that day, you must replace it. So if you take it off the calendar, it's got to go somewhere else on that calendar. Now, we always lead gen in the morning. And we always lead gen in the morning is because stuff happens. And that usually kills your afternoon. If you're lead generating, you're going to have people that want to go see a house. So you can't lead gen when you're showing houses. That doesn't work. That's nurturing. That's not lead generation. All right? So protect your calendar. If you erase, you must replace. So we're going to end with this. This is my all-time favorite poem. All right? It is awesome poem. You can Google it so you can see the words also. The way he does it, though, is truly, truly awesome. So my favorite part of the poem is, and as we let our own light shine, we are unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. So when you come into your office, when you come into your business, right, shine. So you can let other people have permission to shine right along with you. This is not a competition. There's enough out there for all of us. So please shine in your office. This is not from America's Got Talent. This is from Coach Carter. So if you ever want to see this. And just to preface this video, this is, he just got fired because he locked all the kids in the gym because he was trying to save them from gangs and all that. And the gangs were outside the gym and nobody could hurt them inside the gym. So, of course, life happened, and this is towards the end of the movie. I want to thank you all for attending class. All right, everybody, have a great day. Adios.